I left my apartment building and stepped onto the cracked cement sidewalk, the July heat already settling like a heavy blanket over the city. At 25, I'd convinced myself I was finally starting to find my footing, a promotion at the marketing firm, a small but cozy studio in the arts district, and a modest savings account that had taken me years to build. Tonight was, in my mind, a celebration of all that hard work and a chance to show my older siblings that I'd earned my place at the table. I'd texted them 2 weeks ago, join me for dinner at the Ivy Room next Friday. My treat. Their responses arrived within minutes. Don't bother coming, my sister Lacey wrote. We're busy, my brother Jake echoed. No, good luck, no congrats, just sharp little rejections that felt colder than the air conditioning blasting through the lobby. As I headed down the stairs, I paused at the bottom step, my hand grazing the chipped banister. My fingers trembled. Slightly, not from the heat, but from a sudden question, why had I invited them in the first place? I'd spent countless family gatherings feeling overlooked, Lacey always the golden child, the star athlete, the extrovert everyone adored, and Jake the steady rock, dependable, reliable, the one they all turned to when they needed help. Then there was me, quiet, studious, easy to ignore unless something went wrong and they needed someone to blame for missing the dishwasher chore. Yet here I was, still hoping, still wanting. That afternoon, I'd slipped out of work early, the last hours of the day crawling by as I mentally ran through every possible scenario in which my siblings might actually show up. I pictured Lacey breezing in, hair perfect, complaining about the valet fee. I imagined Jake texting me an apology just before dashing through the door, arms full of takeout from somewhere else because I forgot this was tonight. My inner critic scoffed at each mental image, because hadn't I heard them say, don't bother coming? Hadn't I heard the edge of annoyance in their voices whenever I reached out? Still, I'd made the reservation weeks ago, chosen a plush red velvet booth, and studied the menu until I could quote the lobster risotto description by memory. I'd even splurged on a matching silk blouse and those sandals I'd been eyeing since my last birthday. I was determined that tonight would prove something, not merely that I had money to spend, but that I had confidence, self-respect, and a life they might one day envy. The thought stung less than I expected. Why was I so eager to earn their approval, halfway? Across the street, I glanced at my reflection in the glass of a closed bodega. My hair fell in loose waves around my shoulders, my makeup was subtle but defined, and my posture, shoulders back, head held high, spoke of someone who belonged. I took a deep breath and smiled, willing myself to believe it. I pushed open the door to the Ivy Room, the sweet notes of a piano trill floating from the corner stage. The hostess greeted me with genuine warmth. Welcome back, Miss Carter, she chirped, as though I'd already become a fixture here, and led me to my table. As I settled into the velvet seat, I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear and reached for my phone, planning to text a friend last-minute invites. But before I could type a name, my screen lit up with a message from Lacey. Hey, so about tonight. My heart thudded. She'd changed her mind. I opened the chat with trembling fingers. Yeah, I texted back. A few seconds later, her reply popped up. Can't make it, but curious, who's paying for the fancy dinner? Mom mentioned you. Went all out. The words hit me like a cold wave. They'd talked about me behind my back. They assumed someone else must be footing the bill. They still didn't see me as independent, successful, or capable. I stared at the message, the fine script of the restaurant menu blurring before my eyes. I could delete the chat, ignore her question, or fire back a sarcastic retort. Instead, I set my phone face down, willing myself to feel something steadier than hurt or anger. The tablecloth was crisp white, the silverware polished so finely I could see my reflection. I touched the embroidered napkin and felt a sense of calm wash over me. I wasn't here for Lacey or Jake. They'd chosen to stay away, but I still had every right to claim this night as mine. Moments later, my server arrived with a carafe of sparkling water, placing it gently on the table. I recommend the salmon carpaccio to start, she said, her voice soft as velvet. And the truffle fries with the duck confit are to die for. I nodded, finally feeling the excitement I'd planned for, the thrill of new flavors, the glow of candlelight flickering. across my face. I ordered boldly, lobster risotto, the amberjack ceviche, a side of those signature fries. Each dish brought a small, triumphant smile to my lips as I tasted the richness of butter and herbs, the tang of citrus, the earthy perfume of truffles. By the time dessert arrived, a delicate lemon semi-freddo topped with blackberry coulis, I was buoyant. I realized I'd been so focused on hoping for my siblings' presence that I'd nearly forgotten why I'd done this in the first place, to mark my own milestones, to celebrate myself. I lifted my fork and savored that first spoonful, the sharp sweetness cutting through the evening's warmth like a promise. I could write Lacey back, explain how hard I'd worked to pay for every course with my own credit card, detail how I'd saved every extra penny from freelance projects just to feel worthy of moments like this. But the truth was, I didn't need to prove anything to her or to Jake. Tonight was mine alone, though I gazed at the empty chairs across from me, imagining my siblings leaning back in their seats, regretting their decision. The lights above me danced in a soft display of amber and rose, illuminating the polished mahogany table. Somewhere in the distance, the piano player hit a soaring chord, and I closed my eyes, letting the music fill me. In that moment, I was neither the overlooked youngest sister nor the quiet one in the back row. I was a woman who'd earned every bite, every glowing look, every moment of this evening. And tomorrow, when Lacey asked again who paid, I'd have my answer ready. Tonight, though, I simply sat there, tasting freedom. That night, I walked out onto the street with the echo of the piano still humming in my ears, the city's neon glow painting the pavement in streaks of pink and blue. My silk blouse felt cool against my skin as a gentle breeze picked up, carrying with it the scent of popcorn from the corner cinema. For a moment, I paused beneath a lamppost, closing my eyes to memorize how it felt to stand tall without the weight of expectations pressing down on me. I realized I'd been so focused on proving myself all these years that I'd forgotten what it was like simply to enjoy my own company. I scrolled through my phone, half expecting another message from Lacey, something snarky about how I must have had someone footing the bill, but the screen stayed dark. I tucked the phone into my purse and kept walking, the sound of my heels clicking on the sidewalk like a private victory march to AT home. I peeled off my sandals and padded into the kitchen, where the faint glow of the refrigerator light spilled across the tile floor. I grabbed a bottle of sparkling water and leaned against the counter, thinking about the empty chairs at the Ivy Room. Lacey and Jake had always shared a bond, inside jokes, family stories, childhood memories that I'd never quite felt a part of. I'd spent so many holidays on the sidelines, smiling politely as they caught up, talking about their high school triumphs or weekend plans with friends I'd never met. I knew that my achievements were quieter, the late nights spent writing proposals, the small freelance gigs that padded my savings, the steady climb up the corporate ladder. But they mattered to me, and tonight, I'd celebrated them all on my own terms. My phone buzzed on the counter, and I braced myself for a text from Mom reminding me that family is everything. Instead, it was a push notification from the bank. My lobster risotto and other indulgences had cleared. I stared at the alert, feeling a rush of pride as the numbers confirmed what I already knew. This meal, this night, was entirely mine. I opened my banking app and scrolled through recent transactions, the rent auto debit, the utility bills, the groceries, and finally the dinner charge. I ran my thumb over the screen and silently promised myself that I would continue to invest in moments like this, moments of self-recognition, moments of joy that didn't depend on anyone else's approval. Later, I sank into my favorite reading chair with a glass of chilled rose, the cork still resting on the coffee table. The city outside pulsed with life, sirens wailed in the distance, a car horn blared impatiently, and somewhere above me, an apartment window cracked open as laughter spilled into the night air. I turned on my laptop and began drafting a proposal for a new client, letting the quiet empowerment of the evening spill into my words. The more I typed, the more I realized that this was exactly why I'd called the dinner in the first place, to remind myself that I deserved to celebrate my victories, big or small. The keyboard clacked beneath my fingers, each click a testament to my growth, my resilience, and my refusal to be defined by others' dismissals. Somewhere around midnight, my phone lit up again, this time with a social media notification. Lacey had posted a photo of herself at some rooftop bar, captioned, "Living my best life." I scrolled past it without stopping, refusing to let her curated perfection tarnish the glow I still carried from dinner. It struck me how often I'd measured myself against her effortless charm, her wide circle of friends, the way she always seemed to sparkle in every photo. But tonight, I knew that my path was different. My nights might involve solo celebrations or quiet work sessions, but they were mine. I wasn't chasing anyone else's definition of success. I was carving out my own. Before I finally turned off the lights, I sat on the edge of my bed and reflected on what had shifted between the restaurant and now. I realized that when Lacey asked who was paying, she was really questioning my independence. My ability to stand on my own feet. And I'd answered, not with words, but with action. I'd shown her that I could author my own story, fill my own calendar with experiences that mattered, and walk away unshaken by her skepticism. The moonlight filtered through the blinds, striping the sheets with silver lines. I slipped beneath the covers, feeling a calm settle over me like soft linen. Tomorrow, I would wake up as the same 25-year-old woman who spent years playing a bit part in my own family's drama. But I'd carry with me the knowledge that I was capable of hosting and starring in my own celebrations. I thought about calling Jake, telling him I'd missed him, despite everything, and extending another invitation, one that didn't hinge on approval or repayment. But for now, I let silence hold me, comfortable and unafraid. My phone lay face down on the nightstand, and I closed my eyes, ready to imagine a morning where my confidence would shine just as brightly as the city lights had that night. The next morning, I woke before my alarm to early sunlight filtering through the blinds. The taste of lemon semifreddo still lingered on my tongue, and for a moment I savored that quiet triumph before rising. I padded to the kitchen in socks, poured myself a cup of black coffee, and leaned against the counter, scrolling through my messages. No response from Lacey. No congrats from Jake. Just that social media brag and ominous silence. Instead of the familiar pang of disappointment, I felt something new, calm resolve. I finished my coffee in deliberate sips, willing myself to carry last night's confidence into the day ahead. I showered carefully, choosing a blouse in a vibrant teal I rarely wore, and let my hair air dry in loose waves. At breakfast I opened my laptop to review notes for a presentation later that afternoon, an ambitious proposal to land a major client. As I worked, I felt the memory of each dish at the Ivy Room guiding me, bold flavors, confident pairings, the way every element complemented the other. I resolved to approach my pitch with that same spirit of careful construction and fearless self-assurance. If I could order lobster risotto on my own, I could certainly close this deal without doubting myself. My commute was punctuated by the chatter of morning radio and the sight of suited professionals crisscrossing the sidewalk. A subway delay tested my patience, but I reminded myself how last night I'd transformed waiting into an opportunity for reflection beneath a lamppost. I leaned back against the train's brushed steel pole and opened a draft email to Jake. I hesitated over the wording. Should I mention my dinner, my emotions, my boundaries? Eventually, I deleted the message, deciding first to focus on work. If I wanted reconciliation with my brother, it would have to happen on my terms, not out of guilt or longing. By mid-morning, I was at my desk in the open plan office, and a few coworkers paused by to offer congratulations for my recent performance review. My manager stopped by, her smile genuine as she dropped an approving note on my keyboard. Loved your ideas on the digital campaign. Let's walk through them this afternoon. I tucked the note into my planner and allowed myself a small smile. Recognition from colleagues felt different from family approval, less fraught, more freely earned. It reminded me that success didn't have to come wrapped in my siblings' validation to exist. Around lunchtime, my phone buzzed. It was Jake. My heart skipped. What could he want? I opened the message. Hey, I've been thinking about last night. Sorry for the way we handled things. Dinner this weekend? I stared at the screen, fingertips hovering over the keyboard. Part of me ached to say yes. But I remembered Lacey's assumption that I couldn't afford my own meal, and how I refused to let them dictate my worth. I typed back, I appreciate you reaching out. Let's talk next week. I need some time. I didn't add any apology or qualifier. I hit send, feeling the power of my own timing. Afternoon arrived, and I walked into the conference room with a confident stride, slides queued, notes in hand. As I began my presentation, I noticed the way the client leaned forward, eyes brightening with each carefully chosen statistic and creative concept. My voice sounded steady, infused with the same certainty I'd found while dining alone. By the end, they were nodding, asking detailed questions, clearly intrigued. When I left the room, my manager caught my eye and mouthed a "well done." I basked in that honest affirmation, letting it solidify my belief that I could thrive without needing a place at anyone else's table. After work, instead of going straight home, I stopped by a new art gallery opening in the Arts District. Months ago I'd admired the invitations, but always put off attending because maybe someone else will go with me. Tonight, I sashayed in solo, clutching my tote bag and a glass of rose. The white walls were dotted with canvases in bold strokes of crimson and cobalt. A fellow patron admired a large abstract piece beside me, and we struck up an effortless conversation about color theory and city life. For the first time, I felt truly free to explore interests on my own terms, forging connections unrelated to family ties. As twilight faded, I wandered back into the street, greeted by the hum of traffic and the glow of neon storefronts. I realized how many nights I'd spent waiting for my siblings to include me, when in reality the world offered countless invitations if I chose to accept them. I answered a call from my childhood friend, Clara, and we planned a weekend hike, just the two of us. I felt a swell of anticipation at the thought of fresh air, shared laughter, and stories exchanged away from the backlog of family drama. Later that night, I sat cross-legged on my living room floor, cataloging the day's small victories, a successful pitch, setting a boundary with Jake, a new friend at the gallery. I journaled by the light of a single lamp, writing about how independence tasted as rich as lobster risotto and felt as warm as that velvet booth. I didn't need to share it on social media or secure anyone's approval. This recognition was mine, recorded in ink and memory. I closed the journal and placed it on my nightstand beside my phone, face down. Just like before at midnight, I drifted to sleep with a sense of eager expectation for tomorrow, knowing I would wake to my own narrative, gradually shifting from the youngest sister who begged to belong into a woman pursued by her own ambitions. I was no longer waiting for an empty chair to be filled. I was busy building my own table, setting places for those who chose to come, and welcoming the quiet power of solitude for those evenings when I chose not to invite anyone at all.